life-changing to see somebody that knew they were going to die for me. I think that's what made me a man when I saw that. My stepdad is my role model because I feel like that made me grown. And the time that I had with my stepdad had made me grown because he taught me, put your head down and work. You want something, go get it. You know, like, if you want great things, work hard for it. Don't complain. I never saw my stepdad come home and say, I can't do this. I'm tired. I'm not even his biological son, and he's doing this. You know, so when I'm at 27 and I realize what he's going through at my age, raising kids on his, you know, and having a wife, it's like, those are fruits, you know, fruits of life. But he was going through his own battles as well. So once you realize that, it's a whole nother world that you open yourself up to. But I never saw my stepdad for nothing negative. You know, despite the relationship we had, there's good times and bad times. I'm not gonna sit back and let it sit me down because it was a hard time. I'm gonna stand up, you know, and be resilient, just like how he taught me.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna get ugly sometimes, but you have to be a man. You have to be strong. Mm-hmm. You have to be accepting of life.
Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within. Fonzo.
What's up, brother?
Welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Thank you.
So for those that don't know, and my hair right now, it's still holding strong. Okay. We're about 2 weeks out from my last cut.
You're still fresh.
Still fresh.
Yeah.
So you cut my hair. You're a barber, and a very well-known and successful one at that. On the cover, you have quite a social media following. I actually didn't even realize how big it was. You have 90,000 on Instagram. You have over 500,000 on TikTok. And again, I'm sure you feel the same way. You're super humble. I mean, I didn't know that you had the followers that you do. But you know that it's just, for you, it's just a number. It brings opportunity, but it doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't mean that you're better than someone that doesn't have as many. In a way, I guess I'm just saying this to say, I think it was really a pleasant surprise to see that, like, you have this following, but yet you don't convey that outwardly. And what I love and why I wanted to have you come on here today was because you are a very cerebral man that has a lot of incredible insight on life. And particularly when I come into your barbershop, I just let everything that I'm dealing with in my life out. I just let it out, man.
Therapist.
Come in and in a way, like, you are one of the therapists that, you know, I see a therapist as well, but there's, you know, my dance instructor, I would say she's one of my therapists, like, and you in a way are that person. And so, you know, I wanted to talk, you know, to bring you on here because just the insight you have is just super powerful, and you've impacted my life. And so I thought, you know, well, of course, I want, you know, you to be able to speak today and impact others as well. And so with that, my first question is, am I just the weird one that has a therapy session with you, or does that happen pretty regularly?
Yeah, that happens regularly. I think that's part of the barber culture.
Okay.
I think people come in and they talk to us because we're with them for an hour, and it's funny, we're having this conversation face to face. I'm usually like used to seeing the back of your head, you know, or you cutting and we're not even making eye contact, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's just normal. Someone just sitting down, just like we're sitting down here and having conversations for 1 hour a day for every week, 2 weeks that you come in. So I feel like that happens naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you seeing, I'm curious, like, with your clientele, I'm sure you get men from all different walks of life.
1000%.
Regardless of like where they come from and maybe the color of their skin or the upbringing they had, do you see like an equal amount of sharing as far as someone with their personal life?
Yeah, I feel like it's I feel like it's good for me. I feel like everybody's my therapist because I see so many diverse situations or, just diverse people at that I learn from everyone. And I love to pick up wisdom from everybody that I talk to, or, I feel like everyone that comes to me is for a reason. So I tap in and I listen to people a lot. So I feel like I learn a lot from people.
Yeah.
And I feel that's one of the reasons why I love my trade, my barber trade, is because it's so good to meet good people. So
yeah, absolutely. And something I found that was fascinating was on your Instagram in the bio, you have yourself labeled as an artist. What does that entail? So, because I for the sake of telling people that yes, like you cut my hair, but you're so much more than just a barber. I mean, I hope that's where people understand with just even the way that I introed you. I see you as, so much more than someone's just cutting my hair, because it's not just like I come in there and it's dead silent and there's no conversation. It's like there's a sense of peace and a sense of security and safety that I can come in and I can say whatever I need to say and get off my chest. And it's received in a way where, again, I don't remember the first time, what I said to you, or if I open up right out the gate. I mean, I am very open, but you received it in a way where I could tell that you were actually listening. I mean, it was that attentive listening aspect where you weren't just going, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Or trying to change the conversation. You were taking it a level deeper. So when you say that you're an artist, I mean, what all does that encapsulate? Is it just the fact that you're a simple fact? I say simple loosely, of saying, well, I'm an artist because, cutting hair, I'm able to create a certain style that's unique and creative, and that's the artist aspect? Or is it because like you view yourself as bringing so much more to the table beyond just cutting the hair?
I feel like for me, it's more of like what you said, is a creative aspect of it. I'm not saying creative as I'm creative in cutting hair, but more what I can create through my page. And whether that be, I hit the gym, I share that on my page too. If that motivates somebody, I feel like I created motion for somebody, or motion for someone that needs somebody to look up to. It could be just creativeness in a sense of, God put us here to create. So let me create whatever I can create. If it's positive, I feel like I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
So I feel like that creativeness, that's where that comes from. It's just, it's going to be something that I create, not in a subject or something specific, but more, what can I create? What type of life can I bring to, my social media? Because this can be seen from all over the world. So what type of feeling am I going to give it?
Yeah. And when you post, I feel like I may know the answer here, but you mentioned the heaviness, or maybe the more so I'd say responsibility of putting out a message that's going to be seen by others and that's going to inevitably impact them for better or for worse. Your content is very positive. I mean, there's nothing that I would say I've went on there and seen that's chaotic or negative in a way. So that's certainly not something that you're pushing. But do you ever stop and hesitate before you post to consider how it might be perceived? Or are you at a place where you feel that there is no thought given because it's just 100% authentically you, and whatever comes to you, you post it and you move on?
Yeah, I feel like if I'm doing God's work, it's authentic enough to post. As long as I'm favoring Him, I feel like it's good to post.
Yeah.
And I feel like if it's positive, I have nieces and nephews, so I feel like we're all a role model to somebody. Somebody looks up to you. Somebody looks at you and wants to be like you. That's everywhere. We all have role models. Who would you say your role model is?
Oh, that's a good question. When I'd say in the past, when people say role model, I would think, an athlete or a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Without knowing the guy personally, I've always thought The Rock was
The Rock.
I mean, I've always thought very highly of him.
Yeah. I was actually just watching a GQ video of him.
Okay.
He had a GQ video.
Yeah.
It's a really good GQ video. And I feel like I picked up a lot of wisdom from that video. You should watch it.
Yeah. What I love about him is that he's so well known. He's one of the most well-known people on the planet. But yet I see videos of him rolling down his window when there's a bus that's next to him in traffic and saying hello, or like a tourist, one of those tourist bus. I've seen a school bus and a tourist bus, and he'll roll down the window and he'll say hello. And, he goes out of his way to be kind. I've got a little bit of a connection with the entertainment industry. And I've heard that those that have worked with him on set say that he doesn't act like he's above anybody. He'll give people the time. And I think for somebody that has that large of a following and is that well known, for him to still be so humble is incredible.
Yeah, they made the right person famous. They made the right person rich.
I hear a lot of that, recently with people. We made the right person famous, and he's certainly one of them. I also love his story about how he in his words, he said that he failed in the realm of like becoming a professional athlete, a football player. So then he went into wrestling and built his way up, and that became.
That's a great story.
It's an incredible story, and I don't even fully know it, so I'm not probably doing it full justice by even just paraphrasing here. But he thought the NFL was going to be his career. It wasn't. I think he played CFL, or he had played.
Isn't he owner of like XFL?
Now he is, yeah. And so you talk about this, but he just pivoted. I think his story is incredible. It's the power of the pivot. It's like, okay, it didn't work in this realm, so I'm going to go over here and do wrestling. Then he becomes, one of the top, most well-known wrestlers in the planet. And then he goes into acting. It's like, so instead of just sticking in WWE, he goes into acting. Yeah, and now he's singing off like Moana. He's singing in these videos.
The Rocky is a great role model.
And I think what he stands for is the power of the pivot. That's what I really respect out of, with him, is his ability to just move to something else and say, well, why not? I mean, the only thing I can do is try it. That's how I'll find out whether or not I'm capable of something. And that's where I'm at currently in my life, is I'm taking more of these crazy endeavors on, because I think, well, until I do it, I can't say I'm not able to do it. Yeah. I have to try it.
Definitely.
So I would say him to some degree. The other role model, I'm realizing more so is becoming my dad. Yeah. Which is probably the first time I've ever said that, but his
why do you feel like that is? Why?
Hey, man, I knew this was going to happen this way. I knew that I was going to bring you on, but then you were going to start. This is exactly how it goes in the barbershop.
Yeah, that's true. I need to chill.
No, you're good. I appreciate you bringing this up, man, because I've not once said that, or maybe I said it when I was a kid. There was a period in my life where I was really agitated at the way that my dad was, and the way that he raised me. But I realized recently that I had an incredible time back home with my parents recently. And I talked with my dad and I said, hey, I realized why you did a lot of things that you did. I thought that you could have been better at raising me, but I realized that I didn't have the insight, and that where I was coming from was a lack of experience.
It's crazy when you figure that out, like when you become grown and you're like, damn, my dad did not have it figured out, but he thugged it out, he went in, like he did what he had to do. And at the time when we're kids, we don't understand that, but once we grow up, that's like, wow, I don't know how you did that.
It's incredible, because my dad would never really talk about his emotions. And I thought, well, my dad has no emotional intelligence. Yeah. That was the fallacy of my mind, to say, well, if you're not talking about it, you probably can't do it. And then recently I started having conversations with him, and he was going very deep. And I'm like,
yeah, what's going on?
I'm like, Dad, you're really insightful. He's like, well, thanks. I've lived a lot of life. Yeah. And I said, well, I guess I thought that because I never heard you talk about it, I didn't think that you ever even possessed it. He's like, well, Clayton, for me, I just put my head down and just work. Yeah. If something goes wrong, I don't take a lot of time to dwell upon it. Sure, I'll cry. Sure, I'll struggle with it, but I usually handle that behind closed doors. Yeah. And then I just go make it work. I show up and I told him, I go, Dad, we kind of ostracized you as a family growing up. We would cut you off when you talked. We would say we hated you. I said, and yet you still came home every day and put food on the table. You continue to show up for a family that seemed so ungrateful. I said, I don't even know how you did that, because I feel like I would have wanted to, possibly run away from some people that were doing that to me. He's like, Clayton, I made an oath to basically raise a family.
He's a man.
Through thick and thin, no matter how much hardship I face, I was never going to abandon my family. And I was going to make sure that I could give them the best life possible, even if it wasn't perfect. Damn, man,
He's a man.
he's a
bro.
grown man.
That's a man. That's a man talking to you.
So
That's first generation. That's what I look up to. That's what I look up to.
yeah.
That's
Well,
what
so
I
so who's your role model?
man. I have so many role models.
Okay.
I have a
Who's the
lot of
first
role
one that comes to mind? Because I feel like the first one that comes to mind is always the one that's most powerful.
I mean,
Not
you said The
always.
Rock. You said
You're
The
right.
Rock.
But then I
You
went.
said The Rock,
But
and then
then
you
you're
went
right.
to-
So I take that back.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll go first role model. I would say Michael Jordan.
Okay.
That's my first role model.
What about Michael Jordan?
His resiliency, his work ethic, his determination, his consistency, his game, I could keep going, you know.
Mhm.
Michael Jordan's the best.
Yeah.
You know, and people are gonna say LeBron, but mine is Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan is The Rock, you know?
Yeah.
But The Rock is one of my role models too.
Yeah.
You know? But when it comes to a personal level, I feel like I also have a lot of role models because I feel like I learned from a lot of men when I was growing up. I learned from my brother. And it could have been in a good way or it could have been in a bad way. I learned from my dad. I learned from my stepdad. I learned from my grandpa. I learned from my uncles. I learned from a lot of men. And I would say my stepdad is my role model because I feel like that made me grown. What happened with my stepdad made me grown. And the time that I had with my stepdad had made me grown because he taught me, put your head down and work. You want something, go get it. You know, like if you want great things, work hard for it. Don't complain. I never saw my stepdad come home and say, I can't do this. I'm tired. It's like your dad, you know, resilient. He's going to show up and he's going to come back. And I'm not even his biological son. And he's doing this, you know. So when I'm at 27 and I realize what he's going through at my age, raising kids on his, you know, and having a wife, it's like, those are fruits, you know, fruits of life. But he was going through his own battles as well. So once you realize that, it's a whole nother world that you open yourself up to, and you just open your eye as a young man or as an old man, you know, as you open your mind up to what other people were going through. So I feel like everything he was going through in his mind, and I don't even know it because he passed away when I was 19. I couldn't have those grown man talks with him to where he gets deep. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when you say, oh, I was having a conversation with my dad and it got deep as it got, I can only imagine what my stepdad would have told me.
Yeah.
You know? So my stepdad, you know, he went at life just head first, you know, and it was never like, nah, I can't do it. Or, you know, nah, this is too much, you know, and he taught me what I needed to learn. And from him, you know, I learned good, how to work, how to be a man, how to provide, how to do what a man does. And at the same time, I learned what a man shouldn't do, you know, just like my brother, I learned what a man does or what a man shouldn't do, you know? So I feel like I was just very passenger seat, just paying attention when I was little. Yeah. So I feel like that's why I carry so much with me. And just so much, like, I want to say, once you realize that life is so important and life is so precious and you have a purpose, that's when you start taking every day for the fruits of life that God gives us that are ultimately priceless.
Yeah. Man, it's incredible to hear just the bit that you shared right there of your upbringing. I wasn't aware that, you know, you had, stepfather. I wasn't aware that he passed, but that you had learned so much from him in that time. And I have to imagine, I am curious, there was a thought that came up. Was it, when did he first become your stepfather? At what age?
I was little. I was a kid.
Okay, so
yeah, he probably met me when I was like 3-4 years old.
Okay. So for as long as you knew, he was your dad. I mean,
my furthest memory is like when I'm like 6.
Yeah, that's how mine is. Like, I don't remember anything before
it's like
maybe before 6th grade. I don't know if I remember anything before like 10.
I started remembering him when I was like in elementary school.
Yeah.
I feel like in elementary school, that's when I have like my furthest memory. Yeah. Unless it's like a core memory, you know?
Yeah.
I remember further back, but yeah, that's when I remember. Because we moved to Tucson. Because I'm from Nogales.
Okay.
And we moved to Tucson when I was like 6 years old, I think.
Okay.
like elementary,
Yeah.
and then we'll just go back and forth from Tucson and Nogales my
Yeah.
whole life, basically.
So with everything that I've learned about you, you have a really great way of being able to shift your perspective to see the positive amongst really any scenario. So at 19, you said that your stepdad had passed.
Yeah.
Was that a sudden instance that, I mean, came on, or was it something that was, was whether he was sick over time and you knew this was coming, or was it sudden? And ultimately, like, how did you initially respond to that scenario? And then ultimately, were you able to find some silver lining or a positive amongst this, a perspective shift where you were able to cope with that loss?
I feel like at 19 it was a very interesting time, just because man, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. Like, I feel like it was sudden because he was sick, but it was so quick. It was only we found out he was sick, and then 6 months later he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quick. Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
He had like gastric cancer in his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was quick.
Yeah. And I have to imagine that was hard.
Yeah, it was tough, because at the time I was getting kicked out of my house by my stepdad. I was getting kicked out of my house since I was like 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll never blame him, because that's what I'm saying. Being grown now is crazy to think about, like, what he was going through.
Yeah.
Because he was going through struggles. Everybody goes through struggles. Everybody has their struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So when I put myself in his shoes, I couldn't imagine what he was going through. And at the end of the day, when it came to the last day where he's, looking at my uncles in the eyes and telling them, like, I'm ready. My boots are ready to go. I hung my boots up. I'm ready. I'm ready to go with God. I think it was like life-changing to see somebody that knew they were gonna die for me. I think that was I think that's what made me a man when I saw that. Because he's a fighter. He wanted to keep fighting, but he had a sort of an acceptance that I couldn't comprehend at that time, because I was like, no, I don't want to accept that. But he was so accepting, being the person in his shoes,
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big shift for me to see that. But I never saw my stepdad for nothing negative. I never, despite the relationship we had, there was good times and there was bad times. That's with everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's good times and bad times. I'm not going to sit back and let it sit me down because it was a hard time. I'm going to stand up, and be resilient, just like how he taught me,
Mm-hmm.
how your role models teach you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's going to get ugly sometimes, but you have to be a man. You have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be accepting of life.
Yeah.
And it could either knock you down or it can stand you up, and you keep walking. You dust yourself off, you keep walking. But it was amazing, really, to experience that, because it's a once in a lifetime experience. It's what life is inevitably going in that direction. So it's very humbling, and it's a gift from God. If you realize it, if you take that gift and you use it for good, then it's good, because you have to use the gifts that God gives you, maybe because other people need help. Maybe because, at that time, my mom needed somebody strong. So I needed to be strong for my mom and for my sister,
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like everything that life gives you is for good. It's either you can go through what you go through and not use it or not realize it is for good, because it can help someone else, what you went through. Because I'm not going to sit down and be like, oh, this happened to me and I'm like this because of that,
Mm-hmm.
No, like, I need to learn from it. I need to grow from it. I need to, catch that wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what God tells us to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately just turn around and be kind, and use it for good. everything that you went through, you got to use it for good, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard though, you know? I'm not saying that's something so easier said than done. It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And there's the central theme with everything that you talk about and you bring up so much is God, and having that unwavering faith, or perceived unwavering faith. Like you said, life is ups and downs. And so I'm sure there's points where, you've questioned, God, why? And then you find out, and then you go to the next stage of your life and you think, okay, now what are you testing me for? I understand that everything is going to be for the ultimate good. When you experienced that loss, were you already pretty close with God, or was that a catalyst moment where your faith started to really strengthen?
I think I was around God a lot.
Okay.
Like growing up, my grandma would take me to church. My mom would take me to church. There was times where I didn't go to church. There's times where I did go to church consistently. I feel like God has always been around. I feel like my conscience is God, because my conscience is telling me the right things to do, I feel like, yeah, God has always been around. I feel I'm still finding God. I'm still trying to find God, because I feel like this is all temporary. This is all nice. It's good. You got to live life. You got to enjoy the fruits of life, because what's coming is greater, so enjoy it while it's here. Meet good people, be kind to people, enjoy take care of the relationships that you have, stay away from bad people, stay consistent, be fruitful, be good, enjoy what you got here, enjoy this right now, find him while we're here, and once we're gone, we can't even imagine how great it's gonna be.
Yeah.
We can't, it's gonna be beautiful, it's gonna be great. I can't imagine it, but if whatever I could do for now to find God, I love God. God always makes me feel good, So I feel like my fruits of life will come if I look for him every day. So that's why I said, once I realize that, my everyday is more precious, it's more valuable. Life is so precious. So I look for the fruits of moments that are priceless. Like this moment here, us having a podcast, is priceless. It's priceless. Yeah. It's a conversation. It's great. And whoever listens to it may be motivated to be great in whatever they got, their family, like it's all sparks. It's all energy. It's God.
Yeah.
That's what I believe in.
Oh, and I believe that too. I love that. That's the way that you perceive it, as everything happens for a reason, that I'm meant to be here, and for what purpose I don't necessarily need to know right now. I just need to show up.
Yeah.
And I feel very similarly. I basically say every day I show up and God does the rest. And that's really how I live my life nowadays. It used to be like, I am going to show up and I have to basically do this and this and this and this, and hopefully God approves. And it was more of like I thought God was watching but not intervening. And now I feel it's a cohesive relationship where he's working through me.
Yeah.
There was this.
We're stubborn though, right?
Gosh, well, yeah. That's just men in general. Stubborn. Yeah. Because I don't know if this goes back to, from an evolutionary standpoint, men being the providers and the warriors and the ones that, I think there's a beauty in stubbornness, and that, you stand strong in something. So it takes a lot to sway your mind off to something different, which is powerful. There's a point where, it's, you go, okay, like you need to be able to give at some point. But I think to be able to say, well, where's your proof? And be skeptical. Like I think being skeptical and being stubborn kind of fall together. I think stubborn's when you don't allow yourself to change that narrative. And I think we should always be fluid in the aspect of like, always keep the open mind, right? Like stubbornness is dangerous when it's closed-minded, when you're like shutting it off and you're not even listening to the other side. So, but I think if you are a little stubborn, it's not a bad thing, because now, I think it's nowadays we see people that'll just accept something for what they see, and they'll see a front page of an article and they won't even dive into the article. They'll take whatever it says on the front, which is supposed to catch someone's attention, and they'll use that as their fact, when that's just like the hook And then when you read into the description and the end of the article itself, it's like, okay, that was just an eye-catching, title, but
you got to be stubborn to be coachable at the same time, or you got to be stubborn and do it for good. Like stubborn to, get this promotion, or I'm stubborn to, make my wife happy, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Cause I think there's stubbornness can be great when people say there's no way that you're going to ever make it. That's what people would tell me about the NFL.
Yeah.
There's no way that you're ever going to make it. Or even going from high school to college, you have no scholarship offers. You'll never make it at Mizzou. And my stubbornness, lied in the fact that I said, but I work hard. I don't see many people in the gym as much as I'm in the gym. And so let me be the one to prove to myself that I can't do it, not everybody else. And there's a part of me at the time that didn't fully believe in my own ability, but I also wanted to prove people wrong. And so I used that external, those external forces to basically drive me every day. And the more that people said I couldn't do it, it fueled me. It made me angrier because I was like, well, there's people in the NFL, there's people in college. So you're telling me I can't be as good as them. So I'm just meant to be down here. And I'm like, how dare you, categorize me and put me in this box and tell me I can't go there when you have no clue other than you just saying that. And so I let that anger drive me. And every day people kept telling me I couldn't do it until the day that I did it. And that's when they all said that I could do it. Yeah. And I think that was a major life lesson for me as well, is everyone will tell you can't do it until you do it.
It's all external. Mm-hmm. It's all external when it comes to people. I mean,
it is.
You did it at the end of the day.
But that's what I found is that you're really hardly ever going to be told you can do something and let that encouragement carry you into doing it. It's hardly ever going to happen. It's more likely that you'll have people say, well, hey, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you can or can't do it. I'm saying I believe in you and I think you have the capability if you want to. Those are the right people to have in your corner, right? The ones that are being true to you and are being honest and saying like, hey, if anyone can do it, it's you.
That's my other role model.
Yeah.
If anybody was telling me I could do it, it was always my mom. It was always my mom. Mm-hmm. That's my number one role model. Okay. This is my mom. Yeah. Because my mom, that's my world. That's what held it down for me. Because anything I ever said when I was a kid or as a 27-year-old man, my mom was always like, yeah, you got it. Go do it. Or I think that's the first person I experienced. Like, she trusts me to get it done. She trusts me. It might take a little time, but I trust you. It's going to get done. It's going to get done. Yeah. So, yeah.
I love that because I've met multiple people now and my journey of life that they have this can-do attitude because it was instilled in them at a young age. It was not, well, hey, that's the likelihood of you actually being successful are very low. And so therefore you should play it safe and you should go this route instead. This is the proven path. So take the proven path. You go down this path, it's a high likelihood of failure. And I think that from like corporate America to entrepreneurship, when I grew up, being, in Missouri, there wasn't as many entrepreneurs as there are out here in Missouri. And so I always heard, if you said entrepreneur, I remember 99% of entrepreneurs fail. Like I remember that being like the next thought that would race in my head. Right. So that's not a can-do attitude. That's a can't do. Yeah. And so you go, well, what's the possibility or the chances that I'll be the 1%? And more likely, because from a numbers standpoint, 99 to 1, okay, I'm going to choose the 99. That makes way more sense from a numerical standpoint. Statistically, the odds are stacked against me. Yeah. But most of the successful entrepreneurs I know were raised in a can-do environment. They were raised in why not?
Yeah, you could do it.
Yeah. And if you don't do it right the first time, then you'll be one step closer to finding out how to do it correctly because you found out an additional way not to do it. So the more times that you fail, the closer you are to succeeding. That was the mindset. And the failures are nothing more than lessons learned. That's what I started to hear recently, where it's like, oh, so if I fail, I'm not a failure. No.
You have to.
You're only a failure if you
got to fail to grow.
Yeah.
You got to fall to get up.
Mm-hmm. But that's inevitable. Like and you're so right. Like adversity is where the greatest growth comes, and you got to fall in order to dust yourself off, in order to climb back up higher. Right. And if you're always at the top, well, then that you take that for granted, right? You got to experience the valleys in order to enjoy the peaks and appreciate.
I think I live my life off of the inevitable.
Which is for what? Inevitable being constant valleys?
It's inevitable. Or just, I feel like everything is. Because if you're consistent, you follow your path, you follow what you're supposed to be doing, everything on your schedule is getting checked off, right? Mm-hmm. Like this pod is going to get checked off right after this pod. if you're doing the inevitable, the success is guaranteed. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Just like we're inevitably not going to be here one day, you're inevitably going to be successful if you do what you're supposed to do. But if you get distracted, if you didn't do this, you didn't show up that day, this day, third day, fourth day, it's inevitable cause and effect.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, the work's not going to get done.
Yeah.
Work's not done, success is further.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I live my life off of the inevitable.
Yeah.
If I do what I'm supposed to do every single day, I feel like that's why every day is more precious, because I'm like, okay, this day counts. Because if I don't do what I'm supposed to do this day, my goal is further away.
Mm-hmm.
So live my life off the inevitable and know what's going to happen if I show up and if I don't.
Yeah.
So let me show up every day because I want that.
Yeah. So if you had to give a rough number, again, it doesn't have to be exact, but I'm curious, what portion of your day would you say you spend in the present? So for thinking about the past, thinking about the future versus being in the present moment, what percentage of time would you say that you're in that present moment?
That's a hard question. That's a very hard question, but I feel like I'm present. No, I would say I'm about 80% present.
What about that was hard to answer that? Is it because
Because I want to say I'm always present, but I'm not always present, you know?
Yeah.
Like nobody is always present.
Yeah.
You might be thinking about something past or future, how you said.
Yeah.
But 80% of me, I feel like is present, truly.
Yeah.
Because I think things are so precious. Like I feel like life is so precious. I feel like everything is so, it could end tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, our relationship is so precious. Our friendship is precious. This podcast, just because the positivity it could bring, or, you know, the amount of lives it can change, it makes it so precious.
Absolutely.
So I feel like every moment is important.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm present 80% of the time.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, the reason I asked you that question is because you mentioned how you show up and it's whether I do something today or I don't do it. But if I don't do it, it pushes it off from me getting closer to that success. And so I focus on what I can do right now in the moment. And so I had a feeling that you were going to lean over to a large percentage of your day being present. Another percentage I want to ask you. What overall in a week, so I'll just say in a week's time frame, your typical week, because sometimes, you know, crazy things can happen and they can change the way that you operate in a week. But let's just say you're having your standard week. What percentage of that week are you happy?
I'm happy. I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy man. I'm happy. I feel my life is fruitful. I feel I have more things that are priceless, and I have things that, you know, I have in my house. You know, I feel like I'm just appreciative. I'm appreciative of my life.
Yeah.
Because good or bad, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing for God.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So 90%, 100%.
I feel like I'm raised by first generation. So like when I need to be sad, I'm gonna be sad behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna feel what I need to feel. I'm gonna drop my tears and I'm gonna move forward, and I'm gonna be the man that I need to be.
Yeah. 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 So at least the thought that came in my mind, and this is something that I think it's worth highlighting, is the power of presence and the correlation to happiness. I'm sure there's studies done on it, or maybe there isn't, but I've found that, especially as a chronic overthinker, that I've been my entire life, and people pleaser. So I'm always thinking into the past of what people thought of me in this instance, and in the future, how can I make this person like me? And, you know, I've gotten away from that, but I found that I was at my most unhappy whenever I was thinking in the past or future. But whenever I'm in the moment, just taking it in for what it is and being right here face to face with somebody, that's where I feel the greatest sense of connection. And that's where, you know, if I'm here, I can't be in the past or in the future. So I'm not dwelling upon what could have been or what will be. It's just what is now.
Mhm.
And so I think it's powerful to highlight that is a seemingly a correlation between your time that you spend being present, 80%, versus you're like, I'm always, or you said I'm happy a lot.
Yeah, I won't say, nobody's perfect.
No one's
I'm not
100%.
happy all the
No,
time,
if you said
you know?
100%, I would have said, okay, well, that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But what I love is that you in a way, it's almost as if I took it as you're almost more happy than you are present, because the way I interpreted that was, you may sometimes not be present. You may be reflecting, but on the past or looking forward to the future, but you're finding happiness in those moments. So it's not to say that reflecting upon your past or thinking forward about your future are negative.
Yeah,
It's important to highlight that, like, you can find happiness through those moments as well.
Definitely.
But I think a large majority of your happiness comes from being in the right here, right now.
Yeah. And I could be sad, but I feel like I think about the overall picture, from a whole standpoint, I may be sad in some areas, some things, I talk about my stepdad, I'll be sad, but the overall picture of that is me being happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like my happiness overweighs my sadness.
Yeah.
But that sadness is good. I need that sadness too. I feel like everybody needs that, because that gives us purpose. It gives us reason. It gives us where we came from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what is happiness without sadness? What is up without down?
There's no God without the devil.
Left, God without the devil.
Yeah.
You have the necessary opposite.
I feel like the mind is a very powerful thing, and the mind needs to be trained. And if you train the mind to think in a certain way, the mind will become strong.
Yeah.
And if you train the mind to be weak, then your mind will be weak and it will be Ryan.
Mm-hmm. So super powerful, man. You're talking about, to me, positive self-talk ties into that. Mindfulness ties into that. We have the ability to change our scenarios by changing the way that we view them. Like, it's a perspective
shift. Your mind is so powerful.
You can, again, we look at some of the drastic things that happen in life, such as a death, and we can look at that in the moment, rightfully so. We can face, a lot of grief and sadness, but we can somehow pull silver lining and positivity out of that and talk about how that was the transition point for us to become a man. And so finding that positive amongst the negative, right? Just like somebody has every right to live in that moment and dwell in it and struggle with it. It's like, and you should take that time to feel those emotions, but we have the ability to switch really anything if we allow ourselves to. And I think that's where there's a lot of people nowadays, mindfulness is becoming more popular, where it's like, wait, so I can look at this differently. I can view my current situation as a positive, even though it feels so negative. It's like, well, yeah, how do we get you to that place? Do we need, maybe you're comparing yourself to somebody, all these people that have more than you. So I don't think comparison is good at all, but I've found value in, like, for those that compare, okay, if you want to compare to people that have more than you, let's compare to people that have less than you. Let's just take a moment to talk about the people that have less than you, that don't have a roof over their head, that don't
You'll be real thankful then.
Exactly. And I think I used to not do this because people said, well, they would make me feel guilty. Well, don't look down upon people. No, I'm not looking down upon people. But if I'm going to be someone that's using comparison against myself, I should also then use it for me. If that's going to be the avenue that I'm going about life and constantly comparing, then I probably should then compare then to those that may have less, because that's going to help balance myself out and find that middle point. But there will always be people with more. There will always be people with less. And so, if I'm always looking at people that have more than me, then it's like, I might feel that I'm at the bottom. But if I start looking at people that have less than me, then I may start to shift that perspective to the middle, where it's like, well, I'm not at the bottom. Now I'm here. And how much, happier will you be if you feel that you're here versus here? Well, it's going to be substantial. And that's what I found. And so, it's a great reminder to have. And I noticed, like, again, I don't think that you seemingly don't. You focus on yourself. You don't seem to focus. I don't hardly ever hear you talking about other people and this barber that does this or this that does this. This person. You're just here and you're.
I do me.
I do you, man. Yeah.
I do me.
Yeah. And I truly respect that. So, Fonzo, man, I knew this was going to be a good conversation. I knew that we were going to talk about things we've never talked about, but
Yeah.
be able to continue the conversation. And that's what I find is so incredibly beautiful, and why I'm grateful for the connection that we have, because you're just a kind-hearted individual that has so much to offer, and I know this will absolutely make an impact on those that listen. And so for individuals that want to continue to follow your journey, where can they find you?
You can go to my page on Instagram, Fonzo Q.
Okay.
That's where you can find me.
And is it all just, I believe there's an underscore, right?
Yeah.
But if they type in Fonzo Q, it'll pop up.
Yeah. It'll pop up.
Well, Fonzo, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. This is an unforgettable experience for me. It's my first podcast, so I appreciate you having me, Clayton.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.